He was just passing through a quiet street market until he saw the necklace his late wife was buried with, hanging around the neck of a girl who shouldn't have had it. The sun had barely touched the morning sky when Charles Bennett stepped out of his black car, his driver trailing quietly behind. He didn't usually walk through street markets. Too loud, too messy. But something about this town felt familiar. His late wife, Elena, had loved this place, said it had heart. Charles had never understood that, not until now. As he passed rows of handmade scarves and worn books, a small stall caught his eye. Not because of what was being sold, but because of the girl behind it. She couldn't have been older than 20. Her clothes were patched, her hands stained with paint and glue. But none of that is what stopped him cold. It was the necklace. A silver heart, carved with tiny vines. Delicate. Unique. One of a kind. The same necklace he'd placed around Elena's neck the day they buried her. His breath caught. He stepped forward, his voice low and shaking. "Where did you get that?" The girl looked up, confused. "This? I've had it for years." Charles's world tilted. "That necklace belonged to my wife. It was buried with her." The girl took a step back, eyes wide. I don't know what you're talking about. I found it in a donation box at the shelter." The driver came closer, sensing the tension. Charles waved him off. His voice was tight. "What's your name?" "Lena," she whispered. He flinched. That was Elena's name before she married him. No one called her that but him. "Your full name?" "Lena Grace. I don't have a last name. At least, not one I know." Charles stood frozen. His mind reeled with questions. The necklace, her name, her face. God, there was something in her eyes. He turned to his driver. "Find out everything. I want to know where she's from, who she is. Now." But as the girl watched him walk away, a tear slid down her cheek. Because she already knew exactly who he was. And someone had warned her this day would come. Lena sat behind her little stall, hands trembling in her lap. She could still feel the weight of his stare. Heavy, searching, almost like he recognized something in her that even she didn't understand. But she knew who he was. Charles Bennett, the billionaire real estate mogul, the man whose wife died mysteriously 20 years ago. The necklace had always felt special to her. It wasn't just jewelry. It was the only thing she had left from the night she was abandoned. Wrapped in a hospital blanket, a tiny silver heart resting on her chest. The nuns at the shelter kept it safe until she was old enough. They said it was the only thing she came with. Now that man, the one from the magazines, the television, was looking at her like she was a ghost from his past. Back in his car, Charles was quiet, staring out the window, lost in thoughts he couldn't say aloud. "She has Elena's eyes," he said finally. "And her name is Lena." The driver glanced in the rearview mirror. "You think she's related?" Charles didn't answer. He couldn't. Because the truth he had buried 2 decades ago, the affair his wife had before they married, the secret she never told him, was clawing its way back to the surface. He hadn't spoken of it since the day she died. She'd begged him to forgive her, to understand. She'd said, "There's something I need to tell you, Charles." About the baby. But he'd walked away before she finished. Angry. Hurt. And now here was this girl. Poor, alone, wearing the necklace that should have been buried 6 feet underground. He returned to the market the next day, but Lena was gone. Her stall stood empty, her handmade jewelry packed away. Gone without a trace. Panic rose in his chest, not just because he wanted answers, but because deep down, he feared he already knew the truth. She wasn't just a stranger. She wasn't just wearing Elena's necklace. She might be Elena's daughter. And if that was true, She might be his. Charles couldn't sleep. Every corner of the mansion felt colder, every echo louder. He stood in his late wife's art room, untouched since her passing. The windows were still draped with her favorite pale curtains, dust settling on old sketchbooks and canvas frames. But all he could see was that girl's face, her name, her necklace. He had his team search everywhere: shelters, market vendors, old donation logs. It took 3 days to find a lead: a retired nun named Sister Miriam from a small church on the outskirts of the city. She remembered the night Lena was left at the doorstep. She was barely breathing, Sister Miriam said gently. No note. Just that necklace. Charles's voice cracked. Was there ever a birth certificate? Sister Miriam hesitated, then reached for a locked drawer. She handed him an old, folded paper. His eyes scanned it. Mother's name: Elena Grace. No father listed. His knees nearly gave out. He gripped the back of a chair. She didn't just keep the affair a secret. She gave the child away. He left the church in silence, grief swirling with guilt. All this time he thought he had buried the past with Elena. But now it was walking, breathing, alive, and possibly his own flesh and blood. Meanwhile, Lena had taken shelter with an older couple in a run-down neighborhood. The news had reached her faster than she expected: who Charles was, how the world now knew about the mystery girl with the billionaire's necklace. Strangers had started following her, asking questions. A few paparazzi had already found the shelter. She sat on the floor, holding the necklace in her palm, whispering the question she'd asked her entire life. Who am I? The next morning, there was a knock at the door. It was Charles. No bodyguards, no photographers. Just him. She opened the door slowly, eyes guarded. I don't want anything from you, she said quietly. I know, he said, his voice soft, but I think I have something for you. He reached into his coat and held out a photo. Elena, smiling, holding a baby in her arms. I wasn't there when I should have been, he whispered, but if you'll let me, I'd like to be now. Lena looked at the photo, her hands trembling. She didn't speak, but the tears in her eyes said enough. Because sometimes the family you were searching for had been broken long before you were born, and sometimes forgiveness grows in the space where grief finally lets go. Lena sat across from Charles at a quiet cafe far from the city. No press, no noise, just the two of them, and a silence too heavy for strangers, too tender for enemies. She stirred her tea slowly, her voice barely above a whisper. Why didn't she tell you? Charles stared at the steam rising from his cup. She tried. The night before the accident. She told me there was something I needed to know. But I was too proud, too angry. I walked out before she could say the words. Lena looked out the window, her fingers still clutching the necklace. She must have loved you, if she wore this till the end. She did, he said. But she also loved you. I just didn't know. There was a pause, thick with emotion. Then Charles pulled out a small envelope and slid it across the table. This is everything I could find about her time at the shelter. Letters she wrote, drawings of you. She never forgot you. Lena opened the envelope slowly. Inside were faded sketches. Tiny hands, a baby wrapped in blankets, scribbled notes that read, Lena's favorite lullaby, and she smiles when she hears rain. Her throat tightened. She wanted to keep you safe, Charles said. I think she thought I wouldn't accept you. Lena looked up. Would you have? He didn't answer right away. I don't know. Back then, maybe not. But I wish I had the chance. A long silence passed between them, and then Lena asked, What happens now? Charles took a breath. That's up to you. I don't want to take over your life. I don't want to throw money at you or ask for anything. But if you'll let me, I'd like to start again. As whatever you need me to be. Lena's eyes filled again. I don't need a billionaire, she whispered. I needed to know where I came from. I needed to know someone wanted me. Charles nodded, blinking hard. Then let's start there. They walked out together, not as a billionaire and a poor girl, but as two broken souls quietly stitching the pieces of a lost family. And as they stepped into the light, neither noticed the photographer standing across the street, camera clicking, ready to share the most unexpected headline the world would wake up to. Billionaire reunites with long-lost daughter, all because of a necklace.